Hello, everyone. Welcome and thank you for tuning into today's webinar for Invasive Species in Agriculture webinar series. My name is Melanie Apps, and my role is Science Support at the Invasive Species Council of BC. Before we get started, I would like to acknowledge that we are all joining today from different traditional territories across the province. And I would like to recognize that I am very grateful to be joining from the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Coast Salish peoples, including the Kwantlen, Katsi, Stolo, Tsawwassen, and Semiahmoo First Nations, who have stewarded the lands and waters in what is called Surrey since time immemorial. We've got an excellent presentation for you today by Dr. Susanna Acheampong from the BC Ministry of Agriculture and Food. But before we begin, I do want to quickly run through just a couple of Zoom housekeeping items. If you are experiencing any technical problems with Zoom, please use the chat box and Anu, running tech support today, will see if he can assist you. If you have a question during the presentation, please type them into the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. We will be taking some time at the end of the presentation to answer questions, time permitting. Our team here will also be monitoring the chat. If we do run out of time to address all of the questions, or if you have any specific questions after the presentation, we will share the questions and answers by email later. And we will be recording the seminar, so if you do want to view it again or share it with your colleagues or your networks, it'll be hosted on our YouTube channel, most likely by the end of next week. All right, so I'm very excited to introduce Dr. Susanna Acheampong, a provincial extension entomologist for the BC Interior with the Ministry of Agriculture. She supports insect identification, monitoring, pest management, and grower outreach across the region, working closely with industry and government partners. Originally from Ghana, she holds a Master of Science and Ph.D. degrees in entomology from the University of Alberta and Washington State University. Susanna has also conducted postdoctoral research on aphid biological control in Canada and the United States. Today's presentation will touch on invasive insects that threaten British Columbia's tree fruit orchards and vineyards. This session highlights key examples like spotted wing drosophila, apple clearwing moth, brown marmorated stink bug, and Japanese beetle. Participants will learn about their identification, biology, prevention, and management. The session will also cover a few emerging invasive species pests, threats that are on the horizon. All right, take it away, Susanna.
Right, thank you. Let's see if we can share the talk here. Right. Are you seeing it okay?
Yep, looks great to me, Susanna.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. And we're going to have an interesting chat about all these invasive insects that have shown up in the interior BC. So what I'm going to do tonight, there are a few of them that Melanie has already mentioned. We'll look at each of them. We'll look at how you're going to identify them, what damage do they cause, how are we going to monitor? Are there any management strategies for these pests? So I'll just go into the talk. All right, let's see. Oh, all right. Let's see. Okay, I have to do this to advance. All right. And we keep talking about invasive insect species, invasive species. What are they? And normally it's things that we don't have in the system. They show up. You have insects that show up and they leave their natural enemies behind, the environment they find themselves in. If the climate is good, there's enough food, don't have any natural enemies, they take off, then they can create a lot of problems. The interior is really beautiful. We have our tree fruit and we have our vineyards. It's really beautiful out here in the spring. I like driving around and you see all the fruit. So we want to keep it that way. We don't want any of these invasives coming in to create a lot of issues. And when we have these invasive insects, there's a lot of problems. Some of the impacts are quite there's a lot of impacts that we see when they show up. Reduce crop yields because they cause damage, and growers have to figure out how to manage these insects. Are they products that they can use? There are some markets that if they don't have the pest in the country and you are trying to send fruits over there, it becomes a problem, and there are new different regulations that you may need to follow. These days, we talk about food security and availability. If we are having reduced yield, this will impact the availability of food. Some of these things, when they show up, it takes a while for us to figure out what management strategies that we can use. We try to make sure that we use different approaches to maintain, manage some of these pests. We have integrated pest management approaches. So if a shows up and we don't have a lot of things that we can do, and the first option is maybe just to spray, we don't want that. So these sprays that we will use impacts the environment. And then at times, if a pest, there's so many pests on a crop, is it even worth growing it? So that might reduce what the diversification, what people can grow if they don't have a lot of solutions for invasives that show up. This is a chart that is showing some of the invasive insects that have shown up in the valley since I've been here. Apple clearwing. So I'll go over some of them. You'll have a few that I've highlighted, and we'll talk about some of them in detail. But this shows you the trend. Almost every other year, we see some insects showing up, and some of them get established. There are others that they don't really establish. So a major one that has been around that is still an issue, we have apple clearwing moth. We'll go into detail about that. Spotted wing drosophila showed up and is still a big pest in cherries. There is a weevil that showed up, called it Rocco's root weevil. In 2012, that was on grapes. It hasn't created any problem. And I'll just skip some of these. There's quite a list. Brown marmorated stink bug, I'm going to talk about a lot this evening. And when it comes to, there's another new weevil called Otorhynchus albidus. So it's another root weevil that is a problem. It just showed up, so we'll spend a little bit of time on that. I forgot this bronze flea beetle that showed up in grapes in 2018, and I will share some information on that because we have to keep an eye out for that one. Last year, unfortunately, Japanese beetle was detected in Kamloops, and we need to at least discuss that and figure out what we discuss that, and then we'll look out for that one because we don't know when it's going to show up in our orchard systems. So the first one we're going to talk about, apple clearwing moth. Apple clearwing moth, it showed up, it's from Europe. It showed up in Coston in 2005. It's a moth that they are small moths. They are called clear wings because the wings are quite clear. They have these orange bands around the waist. The larvae are cream colored, and they have a 2-year life cycle. So if you have a tree that is infested, you have both small and then bigger larvae in there. The pupa stage, these are brownish, and they cover themselves with these sawdust things. So in the Okanagan, in the interior, apple clearwing moth mainly attacks apples in the valley. A little bit about the life cycle. Why do we even talk about life cycles of insects? It's very important because at times you need to know when they're showing up, the vulnerable life stage, so that if you're going to manage, you know exactly when to go in and manage it. So this time of the year, November, February, March, you have the larvae. They spend the winter as larvae, and they usually under the bark of the tree. So come spring, they'll continue developing. The ones that are almost like 2 years will pupate, and then the adults will fly from June to July into August. They lay eggs, and then you have larvae again into the fall, and these will overwinter. So that's the basic life cycle for apple clearwing moth. And some of the damage that it causes, you have they are quite opportunistic. If they lay their eggs, they need areas where it's soft, there are wounds so that the larvae, they lay the eggs, the larvae, when they hatch out, can feed and enter and go under the bark of the trees. So you have all these damaged areas that are areas that the larvae will enter. And then normally when the larvae, they are under the trees, they feed in under the bark of the trees, they form all these galleries. And then in the spring, well, they will have a lot of poop in the gallery. So in the spring, as they begin to develop again, they push it out. So you get all these. Entomologists have a fancy word for us, but it's just insect poop. So they push that out. And this is actually an indication of some of the damage. And then you can have these swollen stems as well. And this shows some of the damage that you see in an orchard that is infested. You have weak limbs, poor fruit set, early fruit drop, and it can have devastating impacts on trees and then tree loss. How do you monitor for these apple clearwing moths? You can use both wing traps, and then you have these bucket traps. And these you can use pheromones, and you set up these traps in May to monitor for the males. And you can also inspect the bases of the trees. And when they pupate, the pupa cases actually stick out on the trunk. So that is actually an indication. So you can use that to know the presence of this pest for monitoring. When it comes to control, there are various control measures, area-wide mating where you use mating disruption where you use pheromones to disrupt the moths so that they don't cause damage. It works, but when you have very, very low numbers of apple clearwing moth in orchards, and this work was done by Dr. Gary Judd. Grape juice is one method that is used a lot. You can trap out the moths with grape juice. And I like this picture. I took it in a farm down in Summerland a couple of years ago. So they have a simple bucket with the grape juice, and then they take out, you have to take out the moths that it traps. Rimon is a good product that is registered. It will get both the larvae and the eggs. So you apply that in the spring and also in the fall. We don't recommend Rimon use during the summer period for spraying because of mite issues, because it's a bit harsh on predatory mites. There are other products that can be used to control apple clearwing moth for spraying in the summer. We have Delegate, Success, and Trust, and Altacol Max. These are registered for trunk sprays for apple clearwing moth. And Trust is the organic product that organic growers can use. And a few take home. Dr. Gary Judd spent a lot of years working on apple clearwing moths. So infestation normally 3 years. You have 3 years, and at the graft union, that's when the infestation starts in areas where you have this issue. Spray application is very, very important. Gun sprays, very high water volumes, and then high pressure. Those gun sprays are very, very effective, but it's very, very tedious for farmers to do that. But that's the best way to get the control of this pest. And then when you're spraying, removing the weeds around the trees before spraying, and then at least making sure that the orchard avoid irrigation immediately after spraying to let the product soak in so that you can get the larvae. And also at times people in the past, there were all these recommendations about trying to remove the larvae under the tree trunk and under the bark. And Dr. Gerija did some work. That's not good. We should avoid doing that. And then new plantings, very, very important. You can trap in those areas. Keep an eye on that so that since the younger trees are more susceptible to apple clearwing moth. So move on to the next one. So we've talked about apple clearwing moth, a moth that has clear wings and they go under the trunk of the trees. Spotted wing drosophila is another one that has been in the interior since 2009. And I keep saying I started my career with spotted wing drosophila. It's a very serious pest. No one ever thought that you have a fruit fly that will cause so much damage to fruit. It attacks fruit close to harvest, and that makes it quite challenging. There's been some work that has been done by Dr. Howard Tistlewood. You have other ornamentals in the system that may also, spotted wing drosophila may also use as a host. So we have blue elderberry, blackcurrant, Oregon grape, and mulberry. He reared quite a few spotted wing drosophila from these ornamental wild hosts. And then it can cause extensive damage to fresh cherries. So what do they look like? They're like the regular, you have rotten bananas, those flies, fruit flies that fly around. That's what they look like. They are called spotted wing because the male has a spot, a dark spot towards the outer edge of the wing. The females do not have the spot, but then is the egg laying apparatus, which is really quite distinct. It looks like a saw, so it can go in and saw through the fruit and lay its eggs. So that's what makes it a really serious pest. We have cherry fruit fly in our orchards, but at times cherry fruit flies look different from spotted wing drosophila. Cherry fruit flies are bigger, they look more like house flies, and then they will have these banding patterns on the wings. So these are spotted wing drosophila. On the bottom here is cherry fruit fly, and then you can see the difference in sizes. When it comes to maggots inside the fruit, because both will have the larvae in fruit, the larvae of cherry fruit fly tends to be a bit bigger, and then the end towards the end is quite blunt. Spotted wing drosophila, both ends are quite pointy. And when it comes to the pupae cherry fruit fly will form their pupae in the soil. And spotted wing drosophila, usually they will be form the pupae inside the fruit, or you find them sitting outside the fruit. And they have these breathing spiracles, breathing tubes that extend out. They look like tiny waving fingers. So that's the difference between those pests. When it comes to the life cycle, the adults in the interior, they usually fly from April into November. And then the females usually will lay eggs in ripening fruit. The larvae will feed inside the fruit. When they finish developing, they will form the pupae either inside the fruit or outside the fruit. And then the adults will come out again. These fruit flies, the life cycle is very quick. So then they cycle, you get more generations. That's how why they have the tendency to cause quite a lot of damage. These are pictures showing some of the damages from spotted wing drosophila. There's damage to cherries. You have peaches here. You have all these berries. And this is hardy kiwi. That's one of the I couldn't believe it when this person dropped off these samples. It was just full of spotted wing drosophila maggots. So they can cause extensive damage if not controlled, especially in years where we have high populations. and then that's damage to plum. To monitor, you will have to, you can use a simple deli cap with tiny holes on the side. You have a drop of soap, like dish soap in the vinegar so that it breaks down the surface tension. So when the fly gets in, they drown. There are now commercially available pheromones and lures that can be used for the tracer lure, and then that can be used for monitoring spotted wing drosophila. The caveat, though, is that the tracks really will indicate whether the spotted wing drosophila they are present in the orchard or not. Once you have fruits ripening, they are more attracted to the fruit. So the traps does not really tell you about the population, the pressure in the orchard. So there's a few things that you can do. These are some best management practices for spotted wing drosophila control in cherries. So the spray programs for early cherry varieties, 2 to 3 weeks is recommended. Late cherry varieties, 3 to 5 weeks before harvest. GF120 is a very good product for cherry fruit fly control, and it works very well, but it doesn't work on spotted wing drosophila, nor does Acel for spotted wing drosophila control. If you are spraying close to harvest, make sure that the spray intervals are tight. If you are exporting fruit, make sure you know the maximum residue limits for the products and then for the markets you are exporting into. Most of the industry groups will have cherry growers, they have the MRL information for a lot of the countries that our growers export fruit into. Insecticide, if you're using insecticides, resistance development is a it's a serious issue. So it's very, very important that the products that we have in managing these pests, we rotate them so that we delay resistance development. Cherry fruit fly control is important. Post-harvest sprays are also important, especially if you have different varieties that are ripening at different times. And then if you have a lot of fruit calls and they are infested, something should be done about those. So we have quite a few products that are registered for spotted wing drosophila because it's been around for quite a few years now. So we have group 28, we have some older chemistries, group 1Bs, and then the group 5s too, we have the delicates and entrust. Entrust is the only organic product that is registered for spotted wing drosophila control in stone fruits. And then there are some group 3 products as well. And there's a new product that is registered, Ph.D. It's a new group. Apparently, it's actually from spider venom. It's based on spider venom. So it's for suppression. I don't know if any growers have used it, but it would be good to know if anyone has used it and how well it's working. And then there is dimethoate that is used for post-harvest sprays in varieties that are not sensitive. If that is used for cherry fruit fly control, it will provide some control of spotted wing drosophila. So some of the post-harvest recommendations, we have this picture showing a lot of called fruits. There's someone was called in because this was a concern to a lot of growers in the area. This shouldn't happen. So make sure that if you have something like that, it's taken care of. There's recommendations when we have spotted wing drosophila, sealing the fruit in plastic and making sure that it heats up and you kill those. We had programs earlier on where the landfill was able to take a lot of the culled fruits, so growers could send those to the landfills for disposal. And then moving the orchard floor after harvest will also help a bit to destroy some of the fallen fruit so it dries out quicker. There's a little bit of work that is being done, and we're still looking for biological controls for some of these pests that show up. There's three tiny ones that attack spotted wing drosophila larvae. These are established in coastal BC. They're called leptopilina species, and then we have the Ghana space and species. We've been looking for it in the interior, but so far no luck. So we hope they will show up in the interior BC as well, which will really be good news because every little bit helps. We don't want to be dependent only on insecticides. We need different approaches to in managing some of these invasive insects. So I'll move on to our brown marmorated stink bug. That is the stink bug that has the white bands on the antennae. So that's it. It's marmorated, it's marbled looking, it has a smooth shoulder, it has the white bands on the antennae. When they lay the eggs look like tiny little drums. And it's interesting that most of the eggs that they lay are like in groups of 28. And someone told me that stink bugs can count. So like it's interesting, like brown marmorated stink bugs, most of it is 28 eggs. It's really, I find that very fascinating. I don't know why they lay 28 eggs, but that's marmorated stink bugs. And then when they hatch out, the eggs hatch out, you have the names. These ones look like ladybugs, but they are not. So they hatch out at first, they are brightly colored, and then the colors change. You see these ones that look tick-like, and then the colors change. You have more black and burgundy, and these ones look like they are wearing little socks. My student says they are wearing their little sockets. Anyway, so these are the life stages, and it's been around coastal BC 2015, in the interior 2016. Someone found them along the Penticton Canal, and then we found them downtown Kelowna. These things are excellent hitchhikers. If in an area you park a vehicle, the little ones, they get on vehicles and they can spread that way. So if you are in an area that is infested, containers, different things, make sure that you are not the vehicle for the spread of some of these invasives. There are lookalikes that we have in the valley that look like they will look like brown marmorated stingback. So we have a rough stingback here. These ones are quite common in the valley, and they tend to have their rough skin, and the shoulders actually have these teeth projections on them. The antennae doesn't have the distinct white bands. We have this native conspex stink bug, and that's a bit a smaller stink bug, and it doesn't have the white bands. Normally I get a lot of calls about these western conifer seed bugs. They are skinny and they don't look anything like brown marmorated stink bug, but they can be a problem in some years when they try to get into homes, and there can be huge numbers. They look different. They don't have no white band on the antennae. They are skinny. And the back leg is quite interesting. They look like these funky back legs, like they are wearing bell bottoms. And these days, the young ones are wearing those bell buttons. So that one is quite fashionable looking. So that's our Western conifer seed back there. So hopefully we can tell the different species in there and not confuse them with brown marmorated stingback. Not all stinkbugs are bad. There are some good stinkbugs out there. So please, if you see a stinkbug, please don't go killing them just because it's a stinkbug. Make sure that you know what you're looking at. There are some good ones that will feed on other bugs, and some of them the good ones tend to have, some of them will have these pointy shoulders. So it's brown marmorated stinkbug that has given a bunch of the other stinkbugs a bad name, but not all of them are bad. When it comes to damage, they will feed, they have these needle-like mouth parts, so they pierce the fruit, they suck the juices, so you end up with all these browning and discoloration on whatever they are feeding on. And for grape, they go on a lot of plant species. So you have tree fruit, berries, grapes, you have vegetables, and also ornamentals. And it's a serious nuisance in homes and also for grapes, if you have a lot in of brown marmorated stink bugs, because they are called stink bugs, they have a stench somehow, so then they can taint wine. When it was first reported in the US, it caused so extensive damage to the apple industry. This is a picture that shows brown marmorated stink bug damage to Asian pests down at the coast a couple of years ago. Native stink, the only thing too is that native stink bug damage and the brown marmorated stink bug damage are similar. So when you have the damage, at times you get a picture, okay, it's a brown marmorated stink bug. It's difficult to differentiate between the native stink bug damage and brown marmorated stink bug damage. So if you see stink bug damage, please look around a little bit to see if we can find a culprit. And at times it's this, we tend to get a lot of these controller stink bugs, and they will feed on fruits and grapes, and their damage is similar to brown marmorated stink bug when they feed on fruits. And they come in different colors. They have these orange bands around them. And this is I keep saying this is the color wheel of these controller stink bugs. They have green, they have, I don't even know how to, brownish, and a little lighter shade of green. And they can also cause damage. And they like Oregon grapes. So if you have Oregon grapes around your orchards, at times you have high populations of controller stink bugs, and they can spill over and cause damage. This year there were quite a lot of them on some of the Oregon grapes, and the Oregon grapes did very well this year. So I saw quite a lot of controller stink bugs. Another beta pair calcium deficiency, that is the damage looks similar to stink bug damage, but the difference is with stink bug damage, because the insect stinks on the fruit, you always get that depression, like something has stung in there. And then you get, when you cut the fruit, you see the browning and the corkiness under this thing. So that's another thing for us to be aware of. So if it's bitter pit and there are no stink bugs around, you're not seeing that, probably it's bitter pit, but no stink bug damage. And the nuisance problem, this is a picture from New Year's. It's been around for a while, but it's unbelievable how much of a nuisance these things can be. Look at the poor dog. I'm sure it's wondering what is going on there. And this was a picture from Italy in 2017. That was really horrific. And coming a bit closer home, you have um, aggregations of brown marmorated stink back in 2018 in Chilliwack. Looking a little bit about their biology, they spend the winter as adults. The spring, they come out and feed. The female lay their eggs. They have the young ones, and they go through about 5 instars, and then you get to the adult stage. There's 1 to 2 generations in per year in the US, and also here in the valley we have only 1 generation. In Asia, where it came from, they do get quite a few generations. So if they cycle through more generations, you get a lot more damage from them. So to monitor for brown marmorated stink bug, it's a simple system. You have a stick. There's a pheromone that is sold by Trace. We use that, and it's a packet. So you have the lure, and then you have the sticky trap. So you attach that, and you set it up. We normally check our traps weekly, and from May into October, we have our traps up during that period. We've done a lot of monitoring throughout the interior BC. We did about 7 years, 27 to 2024. And we know that most of our survey sites, we've detected brown marmorated stink bug. But the good news is the populations are very, very low in most of our regions, with the exception of Kelowna, the downtown Kelowna core, where that's where we have a lot of the population. So the numbers are really low in other areas. And to date, it hasn't spread to commercial orchards, which is really good news for us in the interior. So we're still keeping an eye out on that one. In the interior, we found them a lot on usually in the urban centers on ornamental hosts, and they do like quite a few of them. Tree of Heaven, this tree, no one knows why it's called Tree of Heaven. I actually had to look it up, and it seems to say they're saying that because it grows big and it grows towards the heavens. Well, that is no heavenly tree because it seems a lot of invasive insects like that. Marmorated stingbug loves that tree. And I'll talk about another insect pest that really likes tree of heaven. It's an invasive species, and I know that the Invasive Species Council of BC, they have some trying to remove some of them. They like shiny cotoneaster. They'll go on maples and lilacs, and then mountain ash, and catalpa is another one, and then the scarlet fireton. So they have a lot of ornamental hosts that they feed on. And when it comes to some of the biological control, natural enemies, we are always looking for that. There's a samurai wasp that really does a good job. It attacks the eggs of brown marmorated stink bugs. And we found it in Kelowna in 2021. It's been found down at the coast in the US. So it's really good news. And the good when you see a parasitized one, normally when the parasitoid is coming out, they will chew off the top of the egg. So this egg mass is actually was parasitized by the samurai wasp. That is really cool to see that. And then we have some other predators that will feed on the eggs. We have red velvet mice, lacewing larvae, and then also these plant Bacteriocorois nymphs, and some trips will also feed on the eggs. But the cool one is a starter wasp. These are wasps, that's the wasps on top here. They carry off brown marmorated stink bugs and then go to their nest and feed their young. So I was lucky to see one carrying off one of the stink bugs to take away for the young. So those every little bit helps. So if we have parasitoids in the system, you have predators that are helping control these pests, then it's really good news. We don't have any products that are currently registered for brown marmorated stink bug control in tree fruits and grapes. So we are still looking for products for managing this pest if they become a problem. If you find brown marmorated stink bug, I've already mentioned that it's really in the interior, it's concentrated in the Kelowna area. So please don't report any that you find in the Kelowna area. But if you're finding them outside, you're seeing high numbers of them, please report those. You can either send me an email. We have an online reporting form. If you Google stink bug BC, it should take you to our website and you can report that. So how are we doing on time? How are we doing? So we are almost halfway there. So hang in there. We've talked about um, a clearwing moth. We've talked about spotted wing drosophila, and then we talked about brown marmorated stingbug. So I'm going to shift our gears a little bit. I'm going to talk about the next series of insects will be some beetles that we are going to talk about. So this is a new weevil in town. This one, a homeowner dropped these off in my office. She had a sticky trap and she had these weevils, and I'm going, I have no clue what these are. Weevils are a difficult one to identify. So I sent them to an expert in Ottawa, and then he sent me an email saying, well, I'm not sure what these are. So he sent them to a colleague in Europe, and they came back and they are going, well, It is Oteorhynchus albidus. It doesn't have a common name, so we just say it's the albidus weevil. It's a pest in Eastern Europe, and it's a potential concern for tree fruits, wine grapes, and vegetables, and they go on ornamental plants as well. So it's quite a hairy weevil, and it's about 5.5 to 8 millimeters long, so maybe about a third of an inch. And they are black or brown, and then they have these silvery patches on them. So that's what the weevil looks like. When we found them, we decided to look around a little bit more, and we used these traps. We had these pitfall traps and mouse and insect glue trap to see what we could find. So we did some surveys, and we collected 164 of the weevils in 2023. And luckily in 2024, we just collected 3 of the weevils. So, which was good because in 2023, it was quite a nuisance for the homeowner because they kept entering her home. So that is that weevil, and we found damage that is really consistent with weevil damage. So you have this notching on the edges of the leaf, typical weevil damage. But we couldn't say that it was the albidus weevil that caused the damage because we visited during the day, and during the day, weevils, they are night creatures. They don't come out during the day, and we couldn't go out at night to look for them. So we just saw the damage and we're saying, well, probably that's what is causing the damage, but we couldn't confirm that. And what made it a bit interesting was that I had mentioned the raucous root weevil that we found in 2012. And we collected those in our traps when we were looking for the albidus weevil. So we collected 23 of those in 2023 and 20 in 2024. So it seems the raucous weevil is coexisting with the albidus weevil. So these two were present when we did our surveys. So a little bit about this raucous root weevil. A friend of mine was saying they are around causing a bit of a ruckus. They are reported from Kelowna, that's the 2012. And then previously, they've been reported from Coston, Penticton, and Summerlot. So once in a while, they pop up in some vineyards, and also they've been reported in some cherry orchards. So they are black to reddish brown, and then they have more of yellow hairs on them. And the grubs normally these will be in the soil. They are legless, cream colored, and they will have a brown head capsule. The larvae will feed on really the roots of plants, and the adults are on the parts of plants. So, and then you have the new shoots and then on the leaves. Some of the hosts listed, you have grapes, fruit trees, vegetables, and then ornamental plants. There's another beetle. It's called, the identification is still not certain. It's called the bronze flea beetle. And these are quite brightly colored beetles. And the identification when the taxonomist came, the closest he could come to was bronze flea beetle. So more work needs to be done on that. It was found in Oliver in 2003. We got additional reports in Oliver 2017 and then also 2018. And in 2018, there were more reports in West Kelowna as well. It's not that we have grape flea beetle, which is out east. It can be a problem in vineyards, but this is not grape flea beetle. So there's still the need for a little bit more work on that to figure out exactly what these are. So the adults will feed on the leaves and shoots of the young vines, and we had them showing up on kochia weed and then pigweed as well. And the recommendation at that time is like if you're looking, we don't have anything registered for this weevil. If you're spraying for leafhopper, some of the products should provide control of this bronze flea beetle if it shows up. So if you are seeing any of these weevils, we have the rockers, and then because weevils, and then also have the flea beetle. If you see any of these, please take a picture, and if it's practical and it's not too much trouble, collect some into a container and email me or drop off some of the samples. We really need to get to the bottom of this, and hopefully they don't even show up. That will be better news for us. We'll move on to another beetle, Japanese beetle. This is native to Japan and it's been out east for a long time, in the United States since 1916. It was first found in BC in 2017, and we were hoping it will not show up in the interior, but we ran out of luck, and last year it showed up in Kamloops. They are quite distinctive looking beetles. They are bronze looking. They have these green, metallic green color. Very nice, beautiful colors. And they will have these tufts of hair, white hair on the side. So they're quite distinctive looking. The larvae or the grubs are a different story. Those are grubby looking and pale and cream colored. They curl up in the soil. But the only thing is they look like we have other beetles, June beetles, May June beetles. These are brownish looking. And then European safer grubs, they look similar to them. So then if you have a grub and you don't have the adult, how do you tell what it is? Well, an entomologist figured out how you tell the grubs apart. You look at the bum ends, and then they have all these hairs on the bum ends, and they form different patterns. So they call these rasta hair patterns. So for the Japanese beetle, it forms a V shape. And then you have the May June beetles. They have formed these almost two straight lines that are joining together. European tafer is almost like a zipper that you are opening. So there it is. If you find the grubs, we can look at the bum ends. You need a little bit of magnification, or try to see if you find any beetles later on so that we can get the correct identification. They attack tree fruits, and then they can be a big problem in turf grass as well. And you have these patches of dead brown areas. You see all these grubs in the golf courses. This can be a big problem. The adults will feed on the leaves. They feed the way they feed. You have these lacy pattern left behind. And from on flowers, they'll take big chunks. The problem is it goes on a lot of plants. And for apple, cherries, and peaches, tree fruit, and then grapes, they will go on those as well. And when it comes to the life cycle, they go through, you have these three larval stages. They spend the winter as the third larval stage, the big grub. And then they spend the winter, they continue developing in the spring. You have adults emerging, you have June, July, you have all these adults, they lay eggs, you're getting the young ones again, and then you end up overwintering as the larvae. So there's one generation per season in the in coastal BC, and then also in the interior. It's a quarantine pest, and Canadian Food Inspection Agency regulates this pest. BC is the only province in Canada that is known to be free, it's considered to be free of Japanese beetle. Even though we have it down at coastal BC, they're trying eradication, and the numbers are low so that it doesn't impact our farmers. So it's going to be a big problem if we don't get a handle on this, and then we lose the pest-free status, then which means there will be more work for growers to make sure that we have certification programs to deal with that. The Canadian Food Inspection Agency set up traps for detection and also making sure that where are they spreading to where they are, and this helps the ornamental industries for exporting nursery stock. So this graph shows surveillance data from 2017 to 2024. The blue shows the number of traps that the Canadian Food Inspection Agency have been setting up since I showed up down at the coast. And then you have the green is number of traps that they found Japanese beetle in. And then the red line is the total number of Japanese beetles that have been detected. So you look at 2018, that was the first year. It was detected 2017, 2018, the numbers were really high. There's a lot of treatment going on, so the numbers seem to be trending down. We don't have the 2025 data. It's not yet in. CFIE is still collecting their data and finishing up some of the data summaries and reports so that hopefully we can share that and see where we are at. So looking at some of the eradication in different areas at the coast, Vancouver seems to be doing very well. Port Coquitlam and Burnaby, it's a little bit slower in the reduction in the numbers. And unfortunately, our detection was in 2024 in Kamloops. So if you find Japanese beetle or the damage, please take a good picture, collect the beetles. Canadian Food Inspection Agency you contact them since it's a quarantine pest. And if you're not sure what to do, please send me an email and we'll figure out where to send it to.
Hi, Susanna.
Um,
Just hopping in to give you a quick time warning. We got about 10 minutes
Oh,
left.
10 minutes. Oh my goodness. Okay, so we'll finish up this quickly. I have one more to go through. We have spotted lanternfly, that is the adult. This is one that is showing up. It's not yet in Canada, and we want to keep it that way. It started in the US, it started in Pennsylvania, it spread to almost 19, 18 states now. It's quite colorful looking. The eggs look like they are laid. They look like they have this pot-like material over it. The young stages, I keep saying they have polka dots, the black and white polka dots, and then as they get older, they have the red, very colorful looking insect, unmistakable. There's only one moth that is very similar. But this is a moth that's quite hairy. The coloration is similar to the spotted lanternfly. So we'll just quickly go through this. Spend the winter as eggs. You have the different stages showing up during the summer, and then they go back laying eggs in the fall. They go on grapevines and fruit trees, and they like tree of heaven. So that's another problem. This tree of heaven, we have our native sumac. It looks a bit different. The leaves have serrated edges. And tree of heaven really stinks. When in doubt, if you touch the leaves of tree of heaven or any part of it, you'll never forget it. That's the test for tree of heaven. It goes on grapes and it can produce a lot with the huge numbers, and that can cause a lot of damage. We have products that are registered, even though we don't have the pests yet. So lots of work going on so that if it shows up, there'll be products that can be used for managing spotted lanternfly. So if you find it, please report it to the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. So we've talked about quite a few, apple clearwing, moth spotted wing, drosophila. These are established in our orchards. Brown marmorated stink bugs is a backyard kind of urban centers. It's not in our orchards yet. orchards yet. These little beetles and weevils and beetles, they are in grapes, but they are not in our vineyards. They are not a problem yet. Japanese beetle is the next big one that we need to look out for. And that spotted lanternfly, keep an eye out for that one. And lots of people have been involved in all the surveys for spotted, for brown marmorated stingray spotted wing drosophila. Thank you to everyone who has been part of these projects. We have a lot of resources. The BC Tree Fruit Production Guide is a good resource. BC Decision Aid System, check it out if you're a grower. We have a lot of good information, models, and when to control pests. And then BC Wine Grape Production Guide is there too. This is my contact information. If you have any questions or you need to contact me, you can always find me. Thank you for your time, and we'll take any questions. Sorry, I went over a little bit.
No problem at all, Susanna. Thank you so much. I had no idea there were so many invasive pests that we had to be on the lookout for in the interior. Wonderful information. So we do have two questions in the chat. I believe we might have time for one or both of them.
Okay.
Um, I'll read them out to you.
Mhm.
So the first question we have is, I have seen an uptick in scale infestation in annual flowers these past two seasons. Are you concerned about this?
Oh. Scale infestation. Oh. We
I
do get yeah, in what crops? That's the question because I'm trying to. What was the question again? In scales in what annual crops? Is it field crops or?
I think it was when we were talking about apple clearwing moth. I think that's when the question popped up.
Oh, yeah, we do get scale insects, and usually in tree fruit, at times they can be a problem. And normally we have the European fruit scale, San Jose scale, and if we do get those, um, the main way to maintain them, you go in early dormant oil applications and make sure that it's the spray volume and all that. So I'm not sure if it would be good if we could ask a little bit more details for that.
All right, for sure. Thank you. Someone said it may have been apple maggot.
Apple
Um,
maggot. We don't have apple maggot in the
okay.
interior.
Okay. All right.
Well, they have it down at the coast, but not in the interior BCs. Luckily, we are the only area that is free of apple maggot, so we are keeping it that way. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. I think we have one more, we have time for one more question. If you're okay to stay on a couple minutes later,
Yeah,
Susanna.
that's good. Yeah.
Okay, so like this is our last question from Jenna. If we start to see more of the Japanese beetle in the Okanagan, can we expect to see regulations for moving plant materials within specified areas?
Well, this is actually, I was at a meeting today we were discussing that. So CFI depends on what you're going to see and whether they're trying eradication in different areas. So it will depend on what CFI. I cannot make that decision because it's a regulated and quarantine pest. So it will depend on the numbers we are seeing and the situation and the discussions and the resources that are available. So all those discussions, we are talking about that and what is going to happen as we see more. Can we continue with eradication? What else can be done? Other regulation, other management and monitoring and all that. So we are thinking about that. So there are discussions along those lines. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Susanna.
Okay.
Okay, just in the interest of time, I think we'll stop Q&A there, but anything that's unanswered, we'll do our best to answer when we send out our email next week.
All right.
So now, Anu is going to pop up a survey for everyone to take. So if you can, please take some time to fill out this survey, as we
Mhm.
really want to know how this webinar series is helping you learn more about invasive species in agriculture. And where I'm going to promote a few upcoming events. So first off, we're going to have the last webinar in our Invasives in Agriculture webinar series, and it's going to feature Tracy Hoopelshuiser from the British Columbia Ministry of Agriculture and Food, and she's going to talk in some more detail about pest impacts across BC. So Anu should be popping the registration link into the chat there in just a second. And we also have an in-person workshop for invasive species in agriculture for fruits, berries, and vineyard producers on December 11th in Penticton. This session is going to cover priority invasive plants, insects, and pathogens relevant to the sector, along with prevention practices, management options, and tools for reporting and tracking emerging threats across BC. This is not only a free workshop, but lunch is also included. So if you're kind of on the fence about attending, you got nothing to miss if you come to this workshop. All right, so that's pretty much everything. Once again, thank you so much, Susanna, for sharing all your information and knowledge with us tonight. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining our webinar tonight. And we'll talk to everyone soon. Have a great night.
Thank you.